The year is 1999. While fools and simpletons wasted their time worrying about the Y2K bug and whether or not it'd bring about the end of society, the true intellectuals of the world had no such fears, taking solace in the realization that just a few years earlier, humanity was given a mandate to continue its existence, with the creation of the peak character known as Develin. With our short and brutal history collectively justified, the finest minds at Taito got to work to create the next step in artistic vision after Puzzle Bobble 4, a game to cap off the old millennium and celebrate the new. Super Puzzle Bobble! But exclusively in arcades. In Japan. Damn, that's a smooth intro. But again, nobody outside of Japanese arcades got to see it, and to this day it's never been ported to a home console. Some of you might be confused because there is a Super Buster Move on consoles that came out in 2000. That's a completely different game than this one, and it doesn't have Develin in it, so it fucking sucks, and if you liked it, you're stupid! Now it's very strange and sad that Taito just let this game rot in the arcades, because at this point, the arcade was starting to go out of style as home consoles got more powerful. And maybe in Japan it was a bit more— WHAT THE?! Oh, it's just a world map. You can't even pick the characters, so no 3D Develin. Okay, so now I know why this game stayed in Japan. But nah, I mean, I was originally gonna make a big stink about this game not being ported, but then I actually played the console version and realized it not only has all the arcade mechanics and more, with the exception of the 2-player puzzle mode, but it was also a bold aesthetic reboot for the series, more deserving of the super prefix, showing off the power of the new consoles at the time with its extremely stylish presentation, versus the dying arcade's aging pixel art. In that sense, the arcade version feels more like a Puzzle Bobble 5 or a greatest hits kind of thing. Either way, both games play pretty much the same, so is what I'd say if making the reboot didn't mean getting rid of Develin, although I do still like the reboot's characters, like Mog, the main character of the Super line of games, who always wears a necktie. You got Catch, an old Taito mascot who uses their tagline of Catch the Heart, which explains what the hell the girl is saying when you start at Bust a Move 4. You got Tom and Yam, Mr. At, this freaking Katse guy, who's 38 years old and also wants to conquer space. Yeah, sorry buddy, only room for one Emperor of Space here. Although I do still think he's kinda cool.
What did you say?
Too early for that! Anyways, the character set in this game is pretty good. You got 4 returning characters, all iconic in their own right. 3 newcomers with this suave rabbit dude. Fox, girl, and Yeti guy. And then of course we saved the best for last. The returning champion, Develin. Bro. Why does he look like that? Like, his in-game sprites look fine, but like, damn, you could crack an egg on that forehead.
I heard that! No!
As for the visuals this time around, the sprites feel more refined and the animations are just as expressive as always. The game overall takes a more relaxed direction with this sort of magical tropical theme. Makes sense since the game finally takes place on Pow Pow Island, which is referenced by name in the title of the song Let's Go to Pow Pow Island, that pretty much serves as the Puzzle Bobble theme song. Yet this is literally the only game in this series that actually takes place on the island. Speaking of music, in the last video I probably should have talked about Zuntata, Taito's sound team. They make the music for pretty much all of the Puzzle Bobble games if I'm not wrong, and they're known for their unique sound that Wikipedia describes as abstract synth pop. Definitely explains the unexplainable nature of Bust a Move 4, or the quirkiness of Bust a Move 2. And they don't disappoint this time around, offering up some chill, otherworldly vibes. But the year is 1999. Chill vibes aren't enough anymore. We gotta have 3D, and not just in the attract screen like Bust a Move 2 did. You already know about the world map for the story mode, but it's also in the bricks for the level transitions, the scrolling plateau or spinning tree in space for the round selection, the won and lost text in versus mode, and my favorite, the brief flash of asteroids flying at you when you're about to lose the game. That gets me every time. In terms of the gameplay, puzzle mode is your typical Puzzle Bobble affair. The pulley levels from the 4th game have been removed, but the new mechanics more than make up for it, and they come together to create what I think is one of the best puzzle modes in the series, making for levels that feel more strategic and purposeful, while simultaneously being easier to grasp than the pulley. To be more precise, I think there's a richer challenge here related to actually maneuvering your bubbles around instead of having to deal with some sort of gimmick. For starters, most of those really annoying wide levels have been greatly reduced in width, and the ones that are still super wide usually have something interesting going on. There's also a new type of block that would hit moves your shooter to the other side of the board. It sounds useless, but it's actually completely necessary to get the right angle for these shots, especially now that there's these metal blocks which simply reflect the bubbles you shoot, so you have to pay more attention to your trajectory. On top of all this, some rounds have you shooting miniature bubbles. They start out small, but grow big once they touch another bubble. So what this means is that you can finally shoot through those tiny gaps that always seem to itch your brain despite not being usable. So while that aspect is easier, it becomes more difficult to actually aim the bubble in the first place since it's so small. But along with mini bubbles is also now really big bubbles, which, when hit with the bubble of the same type, turn every other bubble on the board into its color. It's definitely overpowered, but beyond the initial few spectacle levels, they get more tricky with their placement. Like in this level, where you have to hit a red spark bubble in order to open up a gate. If this all sounds good to you and you want to skip all of the fun levels and get right into the challenging ones, you can choose the new Warp Zone, which I think just skips the first 2 rows of levels, but admittedly I'm not entirely sure what the hell happens. Also, don't be fooled into thinking that the question mark round is anything special. They literally just ran out of letters in the alphabet. With all that said, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, puzzle mode good. I don't care! Talk about that versus mode with Develin in it, because you can only choose Bub for the puzzle mode. What sort of new adventure is in store for our favorite bat? Well, first of all, the thing about this game is that you're technically always playing as Bub. When you choose a character, you're just choosing Bub's partner. For the puzzle mode, that partner is always chack'n, or excuse me, chack'n, who's a character from Chack'n Pop that makes cameo appearances in a lot of the Puzzle Bobbles. But second of all, unfortunately, I think Taito must have burned themselves out making the 4th game's story and having to come up with dialogue for 10 different campaigns, because the story in this game is super bare bones. One day on Pow Pow Island, good old chack'n here tells Bub that the Tree of Time was about to be killed, eaten by a monster called Time Eater. Now I can accept that there's a giant tree in space which controls time, but is it a monster called Time Eater or monsters called Time Eaters? Because there's multiple silly little clockworm bird guys on the screen right now. Moving past that though, Bub is about to leave until your character shows up and comes along for the ride, then that's it. There is no level-to-level dialogue, and the ending is the same no matter what character you choose. The only customized part is the one scene in the opening, and even then, for some of the characters, it's literally just, and then they went with Bub. Wow. Way to get that replayability, guys. I mean, I guess you could argue that the 4th game was the exception and not the rule, but a good story goes a long way making a game feel unique and memorable, and having good characters helps players build an emotional bond to it that you can later evoke by bringing the characters back for future installments. That's what this game seemed to try to do by having a good balance of returning in new characters, but they don't do anything with them, so it's kinda disappointing. Not to mention the plot itself has some unanswered questions you kinda have to figure out on your own. From what I could gather, the whole singular Time Eater thing is a mistake, in that these things are just called Time Eaters, because the final Time Eater, which acts as the penultimate boss, doesn't really look all that different from the other ones. As for why we're fighting the other characters, including a version of Bub himself as the first opponent, which is really confusing and weird the first time you see it because it easily could have been Bob, who doesn't even make an appearance beyond the opening cutscene, there appears to be some sort of time manipulation going on, which you have to figure out from chack'n's hint in the ending where he says that the correct flow of time will return. But we're basically fighting against evil or misguided or otherwise controlled past versions of the characters, yet they also could be illusions of some sort, because while they do get all wobbly when you attack them, once they're defeated they just awkwardly fall off screen. Okay though, I've been really negative so far, so let me lighten the mood by showing you Develin's special opening. Just take it all in. Okay, first of all, that music. Pure fire. Secondly, the way that Develin just slides into frame with his big baby cheeks and billboard forehead, leaning forwards with this pay attention to me posture, is just so perfect. Much like the third thing being his dialogue here. It's so innocent, like there's no "damn it you blasted fool" or "prepare to meet your doom." He's literally just like, "Where you going? I want to fight." And the specific wording of Bub being obliged to take him along, utter perfection. Our Bayo boy still got his Yanga. Like I mentioned earlier, the character sprites here are a lot more refined than in Bust a Move 4, and the voices come from the console version, so rest in peace, Arcade Develin. And look at this clean-ass attack! Ooh! So now we're spitting lasers! That crackling sound as it fires across the screen is so crunchy and satisfying. But once we get hurt, oh, this is so precious. The way they bounce together in this cartoony pose. They have the same expression too. I am Fujoshiing out right now. Okay, no. Something worth noting is that while we still have the same iconic tweaking dev once we start losing, once we start winning, he seems to be more subdued than in Bust a Move 4. In that game, he'd start flying back and forth, giggling with glee, but here he gets this ominous dark aura, like he's just salivating for the kill. And once he gets it, he doesn't let himself explode in full flame like he did before, no. This time he simply crosses his arms and laughs as his aura starts bubbling up even more, like a gas stove turned to high, burning against the silence where an enemy once stood. He can't let it all out, he still has that fight with Bub, and he's now but one step closer to this inevitable battle. You can feel the ominous tension building. Bub knows, oh crap, I am screwed. But then again, nothing happens in the ending, so you know what? Okay, Bub, like, we get it. You like jumping and bouncing around with Bob, but that's just not Develin's love language, okay? So how about instead of sitting there looking all sad and pathetic, you can try to laugh with him? It's not like he faked you out of a high five or something. He was focused the whole time on taking down this dangerous enemy trying to hurt you, doing most of the work, by the way, firing those lasers while you just sat in the background doing nothing or distracting yourself with backflips. He did all that, and once it's finally done, you know, sure, maybe he could have acknowledged you, but he's happy. So why not indulge a little in your victory? You're a powerful guy too. Why not have a chuckle about it instead of sitting there all mopey and bringing down the mood? You know, I see through you with your unused, I think, Develin-related sprite where you're uncharacteristically super pissed off for some reason. He's done nothing to you but help, and you're being all negative. What? He's not celebrating the right way? Newsflash, Bub! The world doesn't revolve around you!
Jeez, man. Well, if it makes you feel any better.
Damn! Talk about getting kicked while you're down. Okay, I feel better now. But you'll be seeing this less often than you would have if this were the fourth game, because for some reason the AI here is way easier than it was there. I want to say it's because of them putting in the ability to toggle chain reactions, which is well appreciated, but the console version of the fourth game also had this ability, and that AI was still difficult, so... It's funny because I actually think the fourth game would have been the one to benefit from having this easier AI, since it would have made it easier to explore the campaigns, but it's whatever. I can go either way honestly, because it actually is nice to not be stuck on one guy for a long time. G. But if you do want the game to be more difficult, you can always check the service menu. For those who don't know, arcade games would usually have a secret screen or some sort of switches that the owner could use to change the game's settings. Stuff that you'd expect like screen alignment and how much the game costs. But there's even some spicier stuff like how many rounds two-player versus goes for, or even the overall difficulty of the game. So some bastard arcade operator could charge you $2.25 to get your ass kicked on a ridiculously hard version of Street Fighter 3, for example. Same thing goes for this game, but there's also a sound test with the game's music and sound effects. It's always fun to mess with these. There's actually some stuff left over from Bust a Move 4 and... No! Come on, Debbie, hit him again! Hit him again for me! Before I go, I should probably also mention the two-player modes. New to this series is the ability to play puzzles cooperatively, which I'd imagine is probably a pretty fun mode. Then of course you have the usual two-player versus. I'm just gonna choose Bub here, or... Huh? Bob? Wait, what? Okay, that's a bit confusing, but aside from that, it's the same, except for the little fact that the opposing player can shoot into your arena. You can also burst your opponent's bubbles right out of the air. I'd imagine this is also super fun and chaotic, so... Yippee. Look guys, I'm just gonna be real, like, this game kinda has me feeling a little dead inside. Like, why is there no custom ending per character, man? It's like they just fade out of existence at the end. Nah, I know what really happened once Develin defeated that last Time Eater.
Now that that's taken care of, we can begin our fight!
What?
You thought you could tire me out, Bub, but that just means I'll have to use my final attack first!
No, Develin, wait! Don't do it!
Bayonga!
Fine!
With Develin undoubtedly horribly disfigured from his fight with Bub, he retreats to an unknown location to nurse his wounds.
Where did I go? Bingo.
Will he ever encounter Bub again, or has he finally been humbled for good? Join the search next time with Bustin' with Millennium.
Which I'm making a separate video for because, come on, I can't keep going after that.